Too bad you can't tell what it smells like right here, because we're composting and it's like super ripe. Believe it or not, composting of all the things in the world is one of Chad's great passions. So you have to answer the question, if you're going to be gardening post-collapse or even in post-disaster, how are you going to come up with fertilizer? Because you really can't grow much after a while without fertilizer. And the answer is, well, Mother Earth will help you out. It's actually pretty easy to create great fertilizer. So you don't have to have a huge compost bin like we have here. You can just do it in a trash can or a 55-gallon drum or just in a pile in your backyard to create your own kind of compost. In this compost bin, we've got about the right amount of brown, about the right amount of green, and we're ready to put it asleep for the winter. So we're going to mix it up a little bit more, get it moist, and then cover it up. And then we'll probably hit it 2 or 3 times over the winter just to rotate it and keep that bacteria working.
Chad Wade here with Tactical Gardening. We are developing a 10-part series on square foot gardening. This is part 1 and it's composting. First thing we need to do in our gardening piece is understand our soil, understand what is in our soil and what makes good soil. And the way that we're going to build good soil, no matter what part of the country we're in, is through composting. Composting is a organic process that breaks down sediments and it turns it into soil. Compost is comprised of carbon and nitrogens. The nitrogen and carbons react in a chemical process that allows the life forms, the bacteria, the fungus, to develop and then break down the solids in the compost. A good general rule for your mixtures of your carbons and your nitrogens. There's a lot of different theories out there. It's safe to say 2/3 carbons, 2/3 browns, basically. Trees, dead branches. 1/3 nitrogen, green grass clippings, kitchen waste. So 2/3, 1/3, carbon to nitrogen. Compost is a soil conditioner. It's going to allow us to target certain pHs, certain mineral contents in our soil. Especially if we live in an area where the clay soil is very prominent, this is going to allow us to add a lot of loamy water retentionness to our soil. What does compost do for us? Compost, it's a nutrient-rich humus. It's soil conditioner. It restores depleted vitality and introduces beneficial organisms. Contrary to popular belief, the soil is alive. As much as your plant that's producing your produce, the soil is as much alive. So this is what we're going to do to help cultivate a healthy life form in our soil and allow us to grow vegetables. You can compost about anything you want, but certain things are going to get you there quicker. We obviously don't want to compost plastics. Citrus are bad. Actually, a lot of pine needles here, the resin takes a long time to break down. Things that we do want to compost, fruit and vegetables, table scraps, eggshells, leaves, straw, hay, wood ash, which is a carbon, chicken manure, which is nitrogen. Chicken manure offers a great source of nitrogen. Coffee grounds are nitrogen. Newspaper, carbon, cardboard, carbon, sawdust, perfect carbon. These are the things we're going to combine in our 2/3, 1/3 ratio that's going to allow us to develop a really good topsoil. One thing we're going to need to do when we start composting is we're going to need to have activators. There are artificial and there are organic activators. There's all kinds of ways that we can add organisms to our composting pile to basically supercharge our compost pile with the life forms we need in order to get the whole process moving quickly. Basically, what you're doing is you're just adding microorganisms and different types of proteins and enzymes that allow these organisms to develop the life force and the vitality needed to basically turn the whole compost pile into high-quality soil. So within our compost pile, we're going to have several different types of bacteria, fungus, insects, earthworms, spiders, you name it, could be in there. And they're all developing this little ecosphere that's going to help break down our solid matter and turn it into really high-quality compost. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our feedstock, which is all of our greens, all of our browns, or our carbons and nitrogens, whether they be raw manures, bedding, feed wastes, blood meals, you name it. That's our feedstock, and we're going to basically put it in a pile. Whether we layer it or whether we mix it is dependent on the situation. What that's going to do after we activate it with the water is it's going to absorb oxygen, and it's going to give off water vapor. It's going to give off heat from the activity of the life forms, and it's also going to give off several different gases: ammonia, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. And then the end state is going to be a mature compost that's, a lot smaller than the original amount we started with, but it's going to be very high in nutrients that we can then amend our soil with.
You saw us earlier in the season, kind of pre-winter, setting these up, and these are our big compost bins. And you can see they've composted down in size. We had these top full. We put in a whole bunch of chipped wood. We put in at least a ton of manure. We put in a lot of green from the garden. And also we had some base in there that was mostly leaves. So this is a really good mix, and it's obviously high volume. And then we put this layer of masonry blanket on here. So that's been keeping it warm. This one we just turned like 3 or 4 days ago, and I'm curious to find out what the internal temperature of it is. What will happen is these should get really hot for like a week or so and then cool back down. There's several kinds of bacteria. There's really hot bacteria, kind of medium bacteria, and cold bacteria that's always at work. When it pops into the hot, that means it's eating a lot of the nitrogen in the greens. So this should be hot or hot-ish. Let's take a look. So just give that a second here. So we know we're outside of the cold bacteria already, and we're talking about probably the hot bacteria. Yeah, so it gets into that black. We know we're in at least the medium hot bacteria there. So you can see the zones in the thermometer here. Those are actually zones of different types of bacteria. If we could get up into the 140 range, then we're in the really hot bacteria. So it's about 40 degrees outside today, 43, 44 degrees. So the fact that this is about 90 degrees right now inside of this pile means it's really hard at work. Wow, you can really tell putting your hand in there, this stuff's cranking, really going. It's super warm in there. So one of the key ingredients to getting compost to work is the right moisture content. So the way you test moisture content is, does it ball up when you put it together? So you see how it's kind of sticking together? That's what you want. From if it's too dry and it just splits up real easy, not hot enough. And this is really well mixed. You can tell it's got a lot of green in there, it's got manure, it's got wood, and this stuff it'll crank the wood down here in the next couple weeks. It'll just chew up the wood and turn it into a loamy compost. So we're definitely heading in the right direction.
One of the easiest ways to compost is to simply dig a hole in the ground and then layer your compost into the hole throughout a long period of time. So you'll go into the kitchen at the end of the week, you'll take your food scraps, you'll throw them in the pit, and you'll cover it with a layer of dirt or leaves or grass, and you'll just leave it and forget about it until next week's food scraps. Dump them on top, throw another layer of dirt on, and on you go. And then within 6, 7, 8 months, you'll have a good compost pile that you can then amend soil for the next season.